The Orioles won a baseball game. And not only that, they did it in a way that they haven't really done in all of 2025. I'll recap the W in DC coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Friday, April 25th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles' 2-1 victory over the Nationals on Thursday night, get you the 5 things you need to know from that one, including an incredible start from Cade Povich, a good showing by the Orioles bullpen, and them coming up with the clutch hits off a lefty starter at the perfect time in the middle of the game. Then we'll run through some stats that show you just how unlikely it was for the Orioles to win a game like they did on Thursday. And finally, we'll get you ready for a big weekend series. Orioles going to Detroit to take on the Red Hot Tigers for 3 games, and I will get you set for that one. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast. But first, just did want to thank you for making Locked On Orioles your first podcast listen of the day. We're free and available on all podcast listening platforms. You can subscribe wherever you listen, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other. Please leave a 5-star rating and a review on those platforms. It really helps out the show. And we're here on YouTube as well. Like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. Of course, if you want to chat Orioles, talk ball, got some mailbag questions, whatever it may be, you can always email me, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. So we've got an Orioles win to talk about for, sadly, kind of since last Friday's episode. I mean, yes, on Monday, the Orioles did win the Saturday game, so we talked about that, but also talked about 2 losses on Monday's episode. It's been since last Friday, a week, since I could fully focus on an Orioles win. But that's what they did on Thursday night. Final score from the nation's capital: the Orioles 2 and the Washington Nationals 1. The O's, who dropped the first 2 games of this series, avoid the sweep and get out of DC with a win in the final game to get to 10-14 on the season through 24 games. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from this Orioles victory. The first thing you need to know is Cade Povich was just awesome. I mean, he was everything the Orioles needed and more in that start on Thursday night. By far his best start of the season, as Povich goes 6 2/3 strong innings. 1 run allowed on 4 hits, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, no homers, 87 pitches thrown, just 5 hard hit balls allowed. His ERA now down to 5.04 on the season, coming off his disastrous start last Friday night against, at that point, an offense that wasn't coming in performing very well, but the Reds got to him a lot. Povich bounced back in a huge way in this game. The 5 hard hit balls he allowed in this one, not something that the Orioles have done so often from their starting pitchers to allow and really avoid that much hard contact. And this is coming on the heels of Tomoyuki Sugano giving the Orioles 7 innings of 3-run ball on Wednesday night. Back-to-back, I would call them great starts by Orioles pitching, back-to-back quality starts by Orioles pitching. And it is the first time that the Orioles have gotten back-to-back starters to record at least an out in the 7th inning since September 13th and 14th of 2024, when Zach Eflin and Corbin Burnes did it back-to-back in a series against the Tigers. It's been a while since we have seen that. And really, Povich should have gotten through 7. He left the game with 6 2/3 with a runner on first and 2 down in a 2-1 game. But he got a ground ball hit to Gunnar Henderson. It should have been a ground out, the final out of the 7th inning. Instead, pretty bad error by Gunnar to continue the inning, and Brandon Hyde went and got Yennier Cano out of the bullpen. Cano, took him 1 pitch to get a ground out to finish the 7th to keep it a 2-1 game. But it should have been 7 strong, and Povich probably wouldn't have come out for the 8th either way. But to get back-to-back nights of 7 innings would have been awesome. 6 2/3 was still great for the Orioles, and Povich did it in a different way than we usually see from the left-hander, and it may have been because of the lineup he was facing. For Cade Povich, his number one pitch pretty much always is that four-seam fastball, right? It's not a super high velocity pitch. He was sitting his usual 92, 93 on Thursday night, but it has that good rising ride action. We saw it again on Thursday. He can throw it to righties and to lefties. It is his go-to pitch. And that's also usually because teams will generally stack their lineups with right-handed hitters when they're facing the lefty in Povich. But that is not really the case for the Washington Nationals. And it's kind of the way that their lineup is similarly built to the Orioles in that their best bats are generally left-handed hitters. And so they are a little susceptible as a lineup when they do face lefties. And they have these big bats like CJ Abrams and James Wood and Nathaniel Lowe and Luis Garcia, where they're too important to sit even against left-handers. So they're just going to keep those lefties in the lineup. And Povich was able to take advantage of that. Now they have some guys who come off the bench like Ahmed Rosario to just play against lefties and Alex Call to just play against lefties. Good, right-handed hitters who have hit lefties well in their careers. But those guys aren't Tyler O'Neill. I know O'Neill's been bad at it this year, but in his career, he's been like mashing lefty. Those are just guys that are good at it a fair amount. And Povich handled those guys pretty well too. I mean, it was a sweeper-heavy approach. 27 sweepers from Cade Povich. That sweeping slider was his number one most used pitch. 25 four-seamers, 27 sweepers. Those sweepers accounted for 31% of his offerings on Thursday night. That is the highest percentage of sweepers Povich has ever thrown in a big league start. His mix was like nothing we had ever seen. And specifically to the left-handed hitters, 54% of his pitches against lefties on Thursday were sweepers. The plan was clearly, hey, that big sweeping slider is good against lefties. The Nats have a lot of good lefties. Just throw it and let it get you outs. And that is exactly what it did for Cade Povich on Thursday night. Guys did not hit the ball hard at all. They averaged an 82 mile per hour exit velocity against the pitch. He got 5 whiffs on 12 swings, which was really good against that sweeping slider. He also was able to throw it in the zone. He got 5 called strikes, hit a 56% in zone rate on that pitch. So it keeps him guessing. A lot of times he'll throw it a lot, but it's usually for a ball. He was landing it for a strike more times than not. It was really, really good to see him have a pitch with a plan against lefties, have it work well, and just keep throwing it. But even though the sweeper was working, and he's obviously going to throw a good amount of fastballs, he didn't get away from what makes him good, and that is a 5-pitch mix with 5 big league level offerings. And guess what? He still threw all 5 of his pitches at least 10 times each on Thursday. So even though the sweeper and the fastball were working well, he was still able to mix in the sinker, the curveball, and the changeup enough to just keep those Nats hitters off balance at big times in the games. He was all around the strike zone. His changeup wasn't a big factor on Thursday. That has been his best pitch at times, but that was okay because of the amount of lefties that he saw. I was just so impressed from what we saw from Cade Povich. And given the circumstances that, and also, I mean, just in general, to get 6 2/3 innings of a 1-run ball is great, but given the circumstances and how bad the Orioles rotation has been, that might have been the biggest start of the year from an Oriole pitcher. And to get that win, just what a job by Cade Povich. Now, the second thing you need to know from this Orioles victory is that the O's did just enough hitting in the big moments to win this game. Now, 2 runs is all they scored on Thursday night, and 2 runs on 4 hits is generally not going to win you a lot of ball games. It wasn't a lot of base runners. 2 runs, 4 hits. They had 2 walks and a hit batter. Those were all their base runners in this game. They had only 1 extra base hit. That was a Ramon Laureano double. That was it. Usually not going to do it. But when you pepper the hits at the right time, and obviously you pitch well, you can still win some baseball games. And the Orioles' problem on Wednesday, when they had 10 hits and still lost 4-3, is that they couldn't get the big hit. They were 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position on Wednesday. Now, they weren't great on Thursday, but they did go 2 for 9 in those situations. That's a little bit better. And the 2 came at perfect times in the 5th inning against National starter Mackenzie Gore. It was a big hit from Ryan O'Hearn off a lefty to tie the game at 1, and then a huge RBI single from Cedric Mullins on a 9-pitch at-bat where he grounded a fastball back up the middle to score O'Hearn and put the Orioles up 2-1 in the 5th. Couple of left-on-left hits by the Orioles against Mackenzie Gore, who's been fantastic so far this year for the Nationals. Just another hit and an RBI against a lefty for Mullins, who's been great against them. But the O's did well, and even though Gore pitched really well, 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 Ks, and 1 walk, that's another great start from Gore, who's been amazing, especially when it comes to strikeouts this year for the Nationals. But the Orioles got his pitch count up, and they got him out of there after 6 innings. They got to, again, a very, very shaky Nats bullpen where they did not score against that pen, but they got Gore's pitch count especially up in that 5th, and they got to him. They had the big multi-run inning, and it was enough to win this game. But in that 5th inning, the third thing you need to know is that Ryan O'Hearn swing was huge. Yes, it wasn't the one that gave the Orioles the lead. That was the Mullins RBI single. But the Ryan O'Hearn opposite field RBI single that tied the game at 1 off the lefty Mackenzie Gore is just not something that we are used to seeing. Ryan O'Hearn, despite it being a left-handed starter, was in the lineup for the Orioles. He was DHing and batting 8th in this game. And that's something you just rarely see from the O's. Now, the biggest reason was that Tyler O'Neill, who, despite his struggles this year, joined this Orioles team to just destroy lefties. That's what he's done his entire career. And he was out once again with some neck discomfort. Now, Brandon Hyde did say he was hoping he'd be available off the bench. So hopefully that means O'Neill will be good to be back in the lineup tonight in Detroit. But it's the second time in the last week or so that he's dealt with some neck discomfort. So something to monitor for a guy who's had injury troubles throughout his career, but has stayed fairly healthy so far this year in his first season in Baltimore. But O'Hearn got the start, and it was still a little surprising to see O'Hearn in there because you have Ramon Arias, who wasn't starting in this game, who hits lefties well. You could have easily DH'd Arias and gotten another righty in there against the left-handed starter in Mackenzie Gore. Now, Gore has generally been a reverse splits guy, but he's still really tough on left-handers. But Brandon Hyde in the front office ended up giving the nod to Ryan O'Hearn. And the last time Ryan O'Hearn was in the starting lineup against a real left-handed starter. Now, I know he started against a quote-unquote left-handed starter on Sunday, but that was Brent Suter, who was the opener for the Reds. He pitched only 3 innings in a bullpen game. That's not a true lefty starter. The last time O'Hearn was in there against a true lefty starter before Thursday was August 24th of 2024, when he started against the lefty Framber Valdez of the Astros. And the only reason he was in the lineup that day is because the day before, Ryan Mountcastle had suffered a wrist injury, but the Orioles at that point were unclear how severe it was. So he wasn't going to play in that next game, but they didn't put him on the injured list yet. So he was still taking up a roster spot. You couldn't call up anyone to replace him. So Ryan O'Hearn was really the first baseman on the roster. And so he had to get the start at first base that next day, even though there was a lefty on the mound. Time before that, O'Hearn also started against a lefty, June 30th, 2024, against Andrew Haney of the Rangers. And that week was that weird week in June and July last year when Ryan Mountcastle was like really under the weather and didn't play for like 4 or 5 games because of some sort of sickness, but didn't go on the IL. Once again, O'Hearn was your first baseman, and you threw him out there against a lefty. And he started against a couple of lefty openers in 2023 as well. But as far as I can tell, Thursday night was the first time since the Orioles acquired Ryan O'Hearn from the Royals before the 2023 season. He's been a huge part of this O's lineup since then. It was the first time that O'Hearn was in the Orioles starting lineup against a left-handed starter while Ryan Mountcastle was also healthy and in that same lineup. First time ever. Now, I understand that this was also because of an injury. I mean, if Tyler O'Neill didn't have neck discomfort, he would be in there and O'Hearn would be on the bench. But they could have absolutely played Ramon Arias, and they chose to go with O'Hearn because he's been one of the Orioles' best hitters so far this year, and give him a chance against lefties. And he comes through with that big opposite field RBI single on a fastball up and in, knocked it the other way to tie the game at 1. And we haven't seen a lot of chances against lefties for Ryan O'Hearn this year. It just hasn't super come up. I mean, he got 2 of them on Thursday. He's now had 81 in 3 years with the Orioles, and it's an 85 career WRC plus against lefties with the O's, so 15% worse than league average. But again, they've utilized him against righties because that is where he can do his damage. But interesting to see him in that lineup, and interesting to see him come through against a left-handed starter. Maybe with the O's struggles against lefties, O'Hearn will get more chances in that spot here in 2025. Now, the fourth thing you need to know from this Orioles win on Thursday night is that Gregory Soto bounced back in a huge way. I mentioned that Yennier Cano came on after the gunner error in the 7th. One pitch is all it took to get a ground out to end the inning. And that one pitch was the only pitch that Cano threw on Thursday night because the Orioles got to the bottom of the 8th. We're still leading 2-1. And it was that pack of lefties up for the Nats. And I mentioned how lefty heavy this lineup is. And they ended up going to Gregory Soto. It was basically 3 lefties out of 4 were due up. Luis Garcia Jr., CJ Abrams, then the righty Alex Call, and then the lefty James Wood. It was 9-1-2 due up in that Nats order, and it's lefty relievers who are able to neutralize that part of the order. And the unfortunate part for the Orioles is they have 3 lefties in the bullpen. Cionel Perez is terrible right now. You are not putting him anywhere near a high leverage situation. And Keegan Aiken's been okay, but we've seen him continue to be a little shaky in high leverage. You'd rather keep him in low leverage. So really, you only have one high leverage lefty right now, and it is Gregory Soto. And unfortunately, he's coming off a couple of rocky appearances after he was just fantastic out of the Orioles bullpen the first couple of weeks. And that included one night ago, Wednesday night, Soto came in 3-3 game in the bottom of the 8th inning, a similar pocket of lefties due up in the Nationals order. And while he didn't get a lot of help from CB Buckner behind the plate, he did allow the go-ahead run to score in the bottom of the 8th inning. So the Orioles could have said, hey, after that shaky outing, we want to go elsewhere. No. Brandon Hyde had faith in his top lefty, and Soto delivered. And while he got behind all 3 hitters and didn't get a strikeout, he worked a 1-2-3 inning against that tough lefty pocket to keep the lead at 2-1 going into the 9th. And I thought that was a huge moment for just the Orioles bullpen, because the bullpen's been great this year. But to see Soto bounce right back into the same spot and say, I'm going to do better this time, and to see him do it, that was really cool for him, really cool for Hyde for trusting him in that spot, and huge for the Orioles' chances to win. And then the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles 2-1 win over the Nationals on Thursday night is that Felix Bautista finally looked like all capitals Felix Bautista coming off of this Tommy John surgery. Comes in with a 1-run lead, looking for the save against the heart of the Nationals order. 2, 3, and 4, James Wood, Keibert Ruiz, Nathaniel Lowe, due up against Bautista. 1-run lead, basically no margin for error, and he was dominant. Through a couple of filthy, disgusting splitters to strike out James Wood to be in the inning. I mean, those pitches were nasty. Then he got Keibert Ruiz to hit a soft grounder. Unfortunately, Felix couldn't field his position, so he gave up an infield single. Nasim Nunez came in. He stole second. We know Felix, because he's so slow to the plate, will give up a lot of stolen bases. You kind of have to accept it with how dominant he is otherwise. But then the runner got to second and 1 out, and it did not faze Felix. He got back-to-back ground outs. He stranded the tying run at third base, got the save. He threw strikes. He's been spraying the ball a lot. He sprayed a couple of pitches around the zone, but the command was some of the best we've seen so far this year from Bautista. And I've been talking about it when I do my Bullpen Trust Power Rankings, where I just wanted to see one of these before I put Bautista in Trust. I'm not doing a version of that on today's episode, but I am officially placing Felix Bautista in the Trust category now for the first time since the injury in the Orioles bullpen. And he gets the O's to a 2-1 win, a game that they haven't played a lot of those this year, these 2-1 games. Coming up next, I'm going to show you just how little of games the O's have had like this and how surprising it was to see them win a 2-1 game like this in DC on Thursday night. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. And with 4K streaming, you've got endless entertainment. You can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. If you have a hardcore gaming experience, Fire TV Stick 4K can be a game changer. If you're just like me, a little more casual, want to watch your shows, Fire TV Stick is great as well. So head to amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd generation, and Fire TV Cube 3rd generation. So for the Orioles, they got to win. 2-1 over the Nationals on Thursday night to avoid the sweep. Hey, we know the Orioles have struggled this year, but they have not been swept yet. So there's that. There is that. It's kind of a calling card of the Orioles the past couple of years. But they also haven't won a lot of games that look like this coming into play on Thursday. Quite frankly, it was very, very surprising to see the Orioles win a baseball game 2-1 with just the state of their starting rotation being by far the worst rotation in baseball. They just haven't done a lot of this. So I kind of had some stats from so far in the first 23 games of this Orioles season before Thursday that kind of show how unlikely it was for the Orioles to win a 2-1 game. First of all, they have not posted a shutout this year, but this is just the fourth time they have allowed only one run. The other three were kind of comfortable wins. 5-1, 8-1, and 9-1 were the three scores of those other games. This was a 2-1 barn burner, and they got it done. The crazier stat, which shout out to Masson for showing this on the broadcast on Thursday night, coming into Thursday, the Orioles were 0-13 when scoring 4 runs or less this year. When they had scored 5 runs or more, they were 9-1. It was really the recipe for the Orioles. Get to 5 and you'll win the games, and they just hadn't been doing it. Well, they scored only 2 runs on Thursday, and yet they won the game for the first time this season. That shows you the pitching really, really stepped up, and Cade Povich absolutely did. They also, for the first time this year, won a game that Jorge Mateo started. The Orioles were 0-6 in games in which Mateo was in the starting lineup coming into Thursday. He was playing second, batting ninth against the left-hander on Thursday, Brandon Hyde said, and rightfully so. Mateo's been good against lefties in the past. We can't just let him kind of rot on the bench. And my issue has been that Mateo's on the roster at all. If he's going to be on the roster, you got to play him every once in a while just to keep him fresh and to be able to use him and utilize him at some point. Now, he didn't do anything, and he was pinch hit for by Jackson Holliday late in the game, but they still won a game that Mateo started. This was also the first Orioles starting pitcher, not named Tomoyuki Sugano, to record an out in the 7th inning. And in terms of run prevention, 6 2/3 of 1 earned run ball from Cade Povich. That is really the best start from an Orioles pitcher this year. Now, it did keep up the streak. It's now 13 consecutive games in which the Orioles starter has not gone 3 scoreless innings to begin the game, because Povich did give up his 1 run in the bottom of the 2nd inning against this Nats lineup on a Josh Bell RBI single, who continues to crush the Orioles. But Povich was just really, really good after that. And it is a little wild for it to come from Povich. I mean, he's kind of the young gun of this rotation. He's been very up and down, but he gave up just 5 hard hit balls, only the 3rd Orioles starting pitcher this year to allow 5 or less hard hit balls in a single start. Povich has now done it twice, 5 on Thursday and 5 in the home opener March 31st against the Red Sox. And then Kramer's got the record. That was last week on April 16th against the Guardians. Dean Kramer, by far his best start of the year, gave up only 4 hard hit balls against Cleveland in that one. So we haven't seen a lot of that from the Orioles starting pitchers this year. And finally, the O's finally won a game against a left-handed starter again. We have talked about how bad the Orioles have been against left-handed pitching, against specifically left-handed starting pitching this year. I mean, it was a team that in the offseason went out and acquired players like Tyler O'Neill and Ramon Laureano and Gary Sanchez that were supposed to really help this team against lefties. And coming into Thursday, the Orioles were, by WRC Plus, the worst offense in baseball against left-handed pitching. A 47 WRC Plus, slashing 168, 256, 228 against left-handed pitching this year. That is a disaster against lefties. They won their first game against a lefty this year. It was the home opener against the Red Sox. The Red Sox started lefty Connor Newcomb, no relation. The Orioles poured on 4 runs against him in the first inning and went on to win that game 8-5. Since then, the O's had lost 6 consecutive games against opposing left-handed starting pitchers. And in those 6 games, they had scored a total of 9 runs. Now, it's not like the offense was dominant. They got just 2 runs against Mackenzie Gore on Thursday night. I'm not at all saying the offensive issues against lefties are fixed. But what I am saying is it's nice to see them win a game against a lefty after 6 losses in a row. That is a good feeling for the Orioles. And honestly, at this point, any win is a good feeling as they got to W number 10 on the season. Unfortunately, it does not get any easier for the Orioles. They head to Detroit today to take on the Tigers, looking like one of the best teams in baseball this year. We'll preview that 3-game series to finish off the show coming up next. So it's Orioles and Tigers this weekend in Detroit as the O's start a 3-game set with a team that was basically the hottest team in baseball down the stretch last year. Sold at the deadline, somehow made the postseason, won the wild card series against the Houston Astros. I mean, they even went out there and pushed Cleveland to the brink in the ALDS. What a story it was. But the questions were, hey, the Tigers did this in kind of a crazy way in the final 2 months of last year. Can they really repeat it? They had like 2 starting pitchers. It was all these bullpen games. They were using guys in funky ways. They were platooning everyone, a lot of no-name hitters. It seemed like it wasn't going to last. But so far in 2025, it has continued. The Tigers are 15-10. They are in first place in the AL Central heading into this series against the Orioles. They just took 2 of 3 against the Padres, who have been one of the best teams in baseball this year. They are also 10-3 at home this season. And the Tigers at home games in Comerica Park, the reason they are 10-3, they are allowing just 2.3 runs per game at home so far this year. That is incredible pitching in their own ballpark. And honestly, the offense was the biggest question. The offense has been pretty good. The Tigers coming into play on Thursday were 8th in team WRC plus at a 109 in baseball. It's not a lot of power, and they do have the 6th highest strikeout rate for hitters among any team in baseball. So there is some underlying issues, and they're 26th in hard hit rate, but that's not really how they beat you. They work the counts, they play the platoons, they play the matchups, they get big hits when they need them, they're good with runners in scoring position, and they do enough on offense. Spencer Torkelson has been resurgent. There was talk about him starting the year in AAA and being down there for a while. Instead, he's been the Tigers' best hitter. He's got 7 homers. He's got a 170 WRC plus, got a 14% walk rate. And the Tigers, it's just a good balanced lineup. 7 of their regulars have over a 100 WRC plus, have been better than a league average hitter. Guys who were on the bench last year, Zach McKinstry and Dylan Dingler, have been awesome offensively so far this year. They are getting a lot of contributions from a lot of different people. And their biggest calling card from late last year is happening again. Their bullpen is still incredible. 2.70 bullpen ERA is 5th in baseball entering play on Thursday. They've allowed a 189 opponent batting average from the bullpen. That's 3rd. And they don't really walk you. They don't really strike you out either, but they definitely don't walk you. Will Vest, Tommy Kahnle, Tyler Holton, and former Oriole minor leaguer Brendan Hanafy have been great out of this bullpen. They are a little shorthanded. 2 guys who they rely on some as middle relievers, Bo Brisky and John Brebbia, are a couple of right-handers, are both on the injured list right now. So maybe some holes in that pen at the moment, but they have just been incredible with that just rotating door of arms that you've never heard of and then just get you out in a second. And of course, the rotation has been unbelievable. They are 2nd in the majors with a 3.09 rotation ERA entering play on Thursday. So the Orioles, who have had their ups and downs offensively, are going to have to figure out one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. It starts on Friday tonight, a 6:40 p.m. Eastern time start on MASN 2. Brandon Young will get his 2nd major league start after being recalled earlier this week. Goes up against the right-hander and former number 1 overall pick, Casey Mize. Mize, who is finally back and healthy and is pitching well so far this season. A 2.22 ERA for Mize so far on the year. Now, he's been getting a little bit lucky. He does come with a 4.01 FIP for Casey Mize, but his starts have been good. His last time out, 7 innings of 1-run ball, against the Kansas City Royals. It's only a 17% strikeout rate, but his four-seam fastball splitter combination have been filthy, allows him to get righties and lefties out. It's a lot of soft contact against Casey Mize. On Saturday, it is a 1:10 p.m. Eastern time start on MASN 2, and we do officially know that Charlie Morton will be getting at least one more start for the Orioles. The O's announced Morton as the starter on Thursday. It had a chance to be Kyle Gibson, who made his third minor league build-up start on Sunday, but apparently Gibson not quite ready yet because the Orioles also announced that Dean Kramer will start on Sunday. So Gibson most likely, it seems like, will make one more minor league start before he's ready to join the Orioles rotation sometime next week before that May 1st opt-out. This Saturday start could be the final chance for Charlie Morton to remain in this Oriole rotation and find some sort of success after he has really been bad this year. He'll go up against the rookie right-hander in Jackson Jobe. This is honestly a hilarious pitching matchup. You have 41-year-old Charlie Morton, who's kind of falling apart right now, against 22-year-old Jackson Jobe, who has not graduated yet and is currently the number one pitching prospect in all of Major League Baseball. I would like somebody to find if that is the largest age gap between two starting pitchers in one single game in Major League history. 19 years between Morton and Jobe. Jobe has also been really good this year. Pretty much every Tiger starter has. Got a 2.70 ERA. His last start, 5 innings of 1-run ball against the Royals. But like Mize, getting a little lucky, comes with a 4.43 FIP. Also, a 17% strikeout rate, well below average, to a 12% walk rate, well above average for Jackson Jobe. That is not sustainable. That is going to catch up with him. Hopefully it does against the Orioles. His fastball at 97 has been getting hit a lot, but his slider is just incredible, and it's good stuff from the young right-hander. Then on Sunday, it closes out with a 1:40 p.m. Eastern time start on MASN 2. As I mentioned, Dean Kramer will go for the Orioles. One final start in April, as we talked about earlier this week. By far the worst month of his career. Unfortunately, it's one more start. Hopefully he can start to move in the right direction. And he will go up against the 2024 American League Cy Young Award winner in Tarik Skubal, who's been just as incredible so far this year in his 5 starts. Skubal has struck out 29 batters and walked just 5 in 28 2/3 innings. He's got a 2.83 ERA. He went only 5 innings, giving up 2 runs his last time out against Kansas City, but basically has been unhittable. Before that, he's throwing his nasty changeup more than ever. He's got that crazy sinker. It's unbelievable stuff. Righties, lefties, doesn't matter. Nobody hits Tarik Skubal. Let's just say hopefully the Orioles have won the first 2 games of that series before they get to the game on Sunday. And I will say, I'm giving you that recap. And also, I will not be back on Monday. Going on a little trip this weekend, which I'm excited for. Going to be there Monday as well. So definitely will not have a Monday episode. The Tuesday episode is honestly TBD. We will see. Absolutely will be back by Wednesday at the latest and potentially on Tuesday as well. So you won't get a full Tiger series recap from me. Instead, just check out the postcast hosted by Luke right on this same channel to get recaps of all the games between the Orioles and the Tigers in Detroit this weekend. And then I'll be back either Tuesday or Wednesday, and I'll try to recap everything I've missed. And hey, if I leave and the Orioles go on a 4 or 5 game winning streak against 2 of the best teams in the American League and the Tigers, and then the Yankees come into town next week, maybe I just won't return to the podcast. Maybe that's the good luck charm, is me just not doing pods. But hopefully the O's and the win on Thursday can push them in the right direction as they go to Detroit. So I'll be back either Tuesday or Wednesday, postcasts between then with Luke. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.